Okay, let's head over to Google Homepage and have a look at what we're trying to reproduce. We can divide the page into three main sections. The navbar at the top represents a section of the page designed to offer navigation links either within the current document or to other documents, links to the About page, the Store page, or the Gmail page. Beneath that, we find the main content, which constitutes the primary material within the body of the document. This content directly relates to or elaborates on the central topic of the document or the primary functionality of the application. In our case, the search bar will be part of the main content as it directly relates to the central functionality of the page, which is to conduct searches. Finally, at the bottom of the page, we have the footer, which usually contains details about the section's author, copyright information, or links to related documents. Links like the one that directs you to the business page or the terms and conditions page. But the first aspect we want to address in our code is the title element. This element defines the title of the document, which appears in a browser's title bar or a page's tab. It's essential for providing a concise and informative description of the page's content. As you can see, in our case, this is simply Google. So let's proceed and add the title element to the index.html file. You can include the following code inside the head section of the HTML file. By adding this code, the browser will display Google as the title of the page when it's loaded. Great. Let's proceed with implementing the three sections in our code by adding the nav, main and footer elements inside the body section of the index.html file. We can add the link element inside the head section of the index file to reference a newly created style.css file. This will contain the basic styling for our web page. For the time being, I'm assigning fixed heights to each of the sections and utilizing viewport heights as the unit to ensure the combined heights of the three sections is 100. This approach instructs the browser to prevent scrolling, similar to the live Google Homepage feature. Additionally, I'm applying background colors to aid in visualizing the distinct sections. Please note that both the fixed heights and the background colors will be removed from the final result. And if we check how that looks in the browser, we're going to notice a margin around the page body as well as a scroll bar. That's because the browser has a default margin of 8 pixels. We can easily get rid of that by setting our body margin to 0 and white margin and scroll bar are gone. Now we can focus on implementing the content of our first section, the navbar. This section features some links on the left side and some more links and buttons on the right side. We can achieve this layout by displaying the navbar as a flex container containing two div items, left and right, which are going to be justified with space between. This property distributes items evenly. The first item is flushed to the start and the last is flushed to the end. So our left links will be About and Store, whereas the right links will be Gmail and Images. On this side of the navbar, we also have two buttons. At this stage, we're not aiming to replicate their appearance or functionality, but it's essential to clarify that they are not links. They are buttons meant to perform specific actions rather than navigate to other pages. So let's add the two divs and their content in our code. In HTML, the div element is a generic container used to group and organize other elements. By adding two div elements and populating them with content, we can structure and lay out different parts of the web page as needed. In addition to the flex container in our CSS file, I have also included some padding to the navbar. This ensures that the links are not directly aligned with the navbar border. I have also commented out the fixed height for now. As an additional touch, I have temporarily set the links to have a white color, making them more visible during the development phase. And if we inspect the result in the browser, you find that our left links are exactly positioned as expected, as well as the right links and buttons. Time to implement the main content elements now. Here we have the Google logo, a search bar, and two buttons. One to submit the search and one to return some random search results. Again, our main content can be arranged as a flex container, containing three items, this time stacked in a column. The first item being an image tag. The second item is going to be particular. Instead of using just an input of type search, we wrap it inside its own div, since we need to add some additional elements inside it. As for the third item, it will be a flex container that includes Google Search and I'm feeling buttons. Let's return to our code and add everything inside the main element. We'll position the image at the top, followed by two div elements, one for the search bar wrapper and another for the buttons. For now, the image will only contain alternative information as some descriptive text. To horizontally center our content, we typically use the justify content property. However, Since we are displaying our Flex container as a column, you need to imagine the container flipped over by 90 degrees, which is why we have to use the Align Items property for horizontally centering in this case. Let's go ahead and add this to the main container in the CSS file. As you can see, the items are now horizontally centered on the page. However, we need to add some margin to space things out, and we also want to make the search bar a bit wider to enhance its appearance. To achieve this, we can add a class to the search div wrapper. You can choose any name for the class, but search bar seems like a suitable choice in this case. This class will allow us to apply specific styles to the search bar and adjust its width as desired. To begin, we'll give our wrapper a top and bottom margin of 1 rem. Then, we'll ensure the content remains horizontally centered by applying an auto left-right margin using shorthand syntax. Finally, we'll specify a width of 20 rems for the input element inside the wrapper by using the descendant combinator, which targets any child inside the parent element. We add 6 rems top-bottom margin to the image and change the alt text color to white. Much better. With navbar and main content positioned where we wanted, our web page is starting to look more like the Google one. Let's implement the footer before wrapping up. This section will also be a Flex container containing 2 items, one div for the top row and another div for the bottom row. In the top row, we will display the country from which the user is accessing the website, and it will be aligned to the left, whereas the bottom row will contain links for advertising, business, and how search works on the left, a link to the Google Climate Action page in the middle, and links to the privacy, terms, and settings page to the right. Let's proceed and add the 2 wrapper div elements in our code for the top and bottom rows. This will allow us to structure the content accordingly and style each row separately as needed. We can then add the related content as anchor tags, apart from the country, which will be just a simple paragraph element. In the CSS file, we can now comment out the fixed height now and set the footer element to display as a Flex container with a direction of a column. This will enable us to manage the layout of the footer's content more efficiently. You might have noticed that I added a footer bottom class to the second wrapper. This class allows us to safely target the bottom row in a specific manner. We could have alternatively targeted the second child of the footer element without using a custom class, but this approach might fail if a new row is added in the future after the top one or before the bottom one. By using the footer bottom class, we ensure our code will consistently style the intended bottom row regardless of any potential changes to the structure. In CSS, we declare our bottom row as a grid container, which helps in centering items with just a few lines of code. The grid template column will repeat 3 times with 1 fraction of the div width, aligning the items to the center. To target the middle div inside the bottom row, we use the nth of type pseudo selector with an argument of 2 and specify the text alignment to be centered. Similarly, we can apply the same technique to the right row, which is the third one, by using an argument of 3 and setting the text align property to right. To reset the default margin of the country of access, we can target the only P element in our page and set its margin to 0. Then we'll give 1 rem of padding to all div elements that are direct children of the footer, our top and bottom rows. This padding will ensure proper spacing and aesthetics for the content inside these rows. And there you have it. Our footer elements are now properly positioned and styled accordingly to the layout we intended to replicate. The use of the Flex containers, grid, and specific selectors has helped us achieve the desired arrangement and appearance of the footer container. Now that all 3 sections of the Google homepage have been structured as desired, the result looks remarkably similar to what we are trying to replicate. The final challenge will be to make the page span the full screen high and then remove all background colors. Let's proceed and make these adjustments in our code to achieve the desired appearance of the Google homepage. To make the page span the full screen high, we declare the page body to have a height of 100 VH, which stands for viewport height, and set the display property to flex with a column direction. This ensures that the elements inside the body are stacked vertically from top to bottom. Since our flex direction is column, the justify content property aligns items along the main axis, which is now the vertical axis. By setting justify content space between, the top content will be pushed to the top and the bottom content will be pushed to the bottom of the screen. If the flex direction was set to raw, we would use the align items property to achieve a similar effect. However, in our current case, using justified content is the appropriate way to control the vertical alignment of the content. In order to make the main element occupy as much height as possible, we can inform the browser by giving its height a value of high WebKit fill available. After implementing the changes, our web page now successfully spans the full height of the screen. The navbar, main content, and footer sections have dynamic heights. I'm commenting out all color properties in our code, including text colors, and with these final adjustments, our task is complete. Well done in trying to reproduce the Google homepage structure.